Now we have the distinct honor of presenting the 2025 Hokenstad International Lecturer, Dr. Augustina Naami. Let me call upon my fellow commissioner, Dr. Amy Roberts, to introduce our speaker. Dr. Roberts is the chair of the Hokenstad Nomination and Selection Committee. So she will be introducing Dr. Augustina Naami.
Hello, everyone, and good morning. It is my great honor to introduce our esteemed 2025 Hokenstad International Plenary Speaker today, Dr. Augustina Naami. With an impressive career spanning over 20 years, Dr. Naami has been a dedicated teacher, scholar, and practitioner in the field of social work and public policy. Currently, she serves as Associate Professor of Disability and Social Work and head of the Department of Social Work at the University of Ghana. She earned her bachelor's degree in economics with a minor in French from the University of Ghana, a master's degree from the University of Chicago, and a PhD from the University of Utah. Dr. Naami has served as visiting scholar and taught students in Norway, Switzerland, and Germany. Her lived experience with a mobility disability guides her research, teaching, and advocacy. Her areas of expertise include disability, mental health and intersections of vulnerabilities, gender, social policy, and poverty. Dr. Naami has published extensively in high-impact peer-reviewed journals and has over 34 publications, including her book titled Break the Barriers. It's a guide to addressing environmental barriers for people with mobility disabilities. This book lays out major barriers that hinder the inclusive participation of persons with disabilities and the ways in which these barriers can be addressed. The book serves as an evidence-based guide for social workers, disability activists, as well as the general public. As a social work educator, Dr. Naami inspires her students, colleagues, and those in the disability community, and the general community in Ghana and around the world. She regularly uses service learning in her pedagogy, and Dr. Naami has a reputation of having her social work students design, implement, and evaluate advocacy and awareness campaigns focused on disability justice. These advocacy and awareness campaigns typically involve over 200 social work students out on the streets, engaging the public on challenges faced by persons with disabilities, covering areas such as education, employment, healthcare, and physical barriers. Dr. Naami is recognized for teaching disability justice and getting her students to practice and live it. In 2024, the African Social Work and Development Network awarded Dr. Naami the Social Work Education Award. In her advocacy work, Dr. Naami has led initiatives to improve accessibility for persons with disabilities. Her advocacy contributions have contributed to policy development and infrastructure changes on the University of Ghana campus and across the country in Ghana. Dr. Naami served on the technical committee that reviewed Ghana's Persons with Disability Act to align it with the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Persons with Disabilities, ensuring the preservation of rights for individuals with various types of disabilities. She has been instrumental in raising awareness about disability issues in Ghana, and since 2022, she has spearheaded the construction of ramps in several educational institutions to facilitate access for students with mobility challenges. Today, Dr. Naami will address how embedding disability justice and disability joy at the core of social work education can reshape its theory, pedagogy, and practice. Drawing on personal experience and research to practice integration in Ghana, she highlights how disability justice extends beyond accessibility to challenge systemic inequities and affirm intersectionality. Through examples of participatory research, advocacy-based pedagogy, and community-based interventions, she illustrates how education grounded in disability justice can transform lives, structures, and attitudes. It calls on educators, practitioners, and students to move disability from the margins and to move it to the core of social work education, creating spaces where disability, justice, and joy coexist as foundations of inclusion. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Augustina Naami to the podium. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Hello. Okay. I just want to be sure that you can hear me. Distinguished colleagues, social work educators, administrators, practitioners, students, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I hope you are all doing well and enjoying the conference so far. I am doing well and enjoying the conference. It is an honor to be here today on the ticket of Hokenstad International Lecture at this year's Council of Social Work Education Annual Gathering on the theme, "It's Time to Act, Championing Disability Justice and Disability Joy in Social Work." I really want to thank the organizers of this conference for every effort to get me from Ghana to this place. I appreciate you. I'm also deeply grateful to the nomination committee for finding my work deserving of an international platform like this. And to my colleague and friend, Dr. Felicia Taggle, thank you. Thank you for believing in me and the work that I've been doing. I'm grateful. So colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, this morning I will be speaking on the topic Social Work Education and Disability Justice, a Global Perspective. Around the world, social work has evolved as a profession grounded in the values of dignity, fairness, and human rights. However, for persons with disabilities, the realization of these values remains marginal. This gathering provides an opportunity for us to critically reflect on how social work education can promote disability justice and disability joy in social work. I want to start this lecture with a personal story. I acquired polio at the age of 2. Polio was a life-threatening experience that profoundly impacted my path. While I refused to let it stop me from pursuing education and professional growth, the journey has been very challenging. Every phase of my life involved ongoing barriers, physical, attitudinal, structural barriers that I have to navigate on a daily basis. At first, I chose to major in economics because I envisaged a white-collar career that would avoid, so that I wouldn't have contact with the physical demands of fieldwork. However, during my undergraduate studies, a stronger calling surfaced. I couldn't ignore the fact that very few students with disabilities were represented in higher education. I asked myself several times, where were the others? What obstacles prevented them from participating in higher education? Who was advocating for them? The movement of questioning sparked my lifelong dedication to disability justice. With the support that I received from my family, I realized that my experience was not universal. Many lacked similar support, and their silence motivated me to take action. Years later, I entered the field of social work practice and eventually transitioned into academia where I am today. And now I purposefully integrate my lived experiences of disability with my teaching and research. In so doing, I embrace disability joy, not just as resilience in the face of barriers, but as a force that influences knowledge, pedagogy, and advocacy. Through this integration, I aim for personal fulfillment and to contribute to the broader movement of change or social change. This morning, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I invite us to reflect together on a central provocation, and this is it. If disability justice is about reimagining the world, then what might social work education look like if it fully embraces disability justice and disability joy as its very foundation? And this is the question that I want us to reflect on. So this keynote, therefore, is not only an academic reflection, but also a collective call for action. My presentation will follow the following outline. I will begin with an overview of disability. I will talk briefly about social work education, disability justice, and then case examples of my work in Ghana. Then I'll zoom into implications for social work education, and then a conclusion. So by way of overview of disability, about 1.3 billion people globally live with some form of disability. The majority of this population lives in low-income countries. The inclusion of persons with disabilities remains a challenge, and this is due largely to persistent stigma, entrenched structural barriers, and the gap between policy and practice. However, disability inclusion is indispensable to development. The 1.3 billion persons with disabilities cannot be left behind. They cannot be left in the margins as we strive to achieve the sustainable development goals. Well, as for social work education, I mean, we are all social work educators here, so I'll just talk about that briefly. That social work education can play a crucial role in addressing the challenges that persons with disabilities face, the challenges of disability inclusion. Social work education, which is a formal preparation and training that equips students with values, ethics, theoretical frameworks, and practice that they need to promote human rights, social justice, universal well-being, and to respond effectively to diverse individuals, families, and communities. But the question that I want us to ask ourselves this morning is this: where is disability positioned in the social work education mandate? Where is disability positioned? In the global north, social work education is often well-resourced with state-of-the-art teaching facilities and institutionalized placements. Social work education in the Global South operates in context of limited resources, underdeveloped formal social protection systems, competing development priorities, and occasional use of indigenous knowledge. However, there's evidence in both Global South and Global North that disability is often overshadowed in diversity-related core courses, limiting disability to the margins of the profession that has power to champion disability justice and disability joy. But honestly, colleagues, let's ask ourselves, how often does disability feature at the very core of how we teach, practice, and how we do our research? Disability justice, I wouldn't waste much time on it because on Thursday, my colleagues on the panelists did a very good job to that, so I'll be very brief on that. But disability justice highlights intersectionality, collective liberation, and dismantling of systemic oppression. Disability justice challenges social work education to integrate intersectionality and lived experiences in curricula, reframe pedagogy to center the voices of persons with disabilities, and cultivate accessible spaces that promote equity, systemic change, and inclusion. Social work education must embrace disability joy. We should teach students to see persons with disabilities not only through the lens of barriers and needs, but also through their creativity, resilience, thriving, and community. But then I asked another question. How can social work education truly centralize disability to fulfill its mandate of equity and inclusion? So to begin exploring this question, I will turn to my work in Ghana as a case study. While rooted in a specific national context, the lessons extend far beyond offering insights relevant to both the Global North and Global South. In my work, I aim to integrate research, praxis, pedagogy, advocacy in ways that confront exclusion while nurturing new possibilities for social justice. By sharing these examples, I hope to illustrate that disability justice can be applied in practice. And social work education can be reimagined in ways that can be so transformative and also where disability inclusion will no longer be anything that is afterthought, but will intentionally integrate disability, or disability justice will be the very foundation of what we do. So now let's look at the research that I've done so far in Ghana. I will just give an example because it's a lot, so I'll give just an example. My research is deeply rooted in the principles of disability justice, with a particular focus on gender, disability, mental health, policy. Very recently, I've added climate justice. And then the core of my research is intersection of vulnerabilities. Beyond examining these, I am committed to conducting transformative research, aiming not only to document barriers, but also to equip participants and inspire systemic change. One example is a project that I conducted in 2016 to mark the 10th anniversary of Ghana's Persons with Disability Act. So at that point in time, I really wanted to understand directly from the voices of the persons with disabilities. I wanted to know their ongoing struggles and how access barriers impacted their daily lives. To do this, I employed the photo voice methodology. The photo voice methodology combines photography or photographs with narratives, and that enables participants to tell their own stories. I recruited 10 participants with mobility disabilities, and I gave each one of them cameras so that they could document their daily realities, especially regarding transportation and build environment accessibility. So at the end of the day, a total of 431 pictures were captured. But as photo voice methodology is co-creation, at the end of the day, I sat down with them during the analysis phase, and we selected 153 pictures. And these pictures were or captured 11 environments. So examples of these environments were schools, classrooms, schools, hospitals, churches, government offices, public spaces, and so on and so forth. Photo voice methodology proves to be more than a research tool. It is a participatory and empowering process. So many of my study participants, though without advanced formal education, in fact, some of them did not have any form of education, but they were able to convey their experiences powerfully through images and words. And in so doing, they were not simply subjects of research. They became knowledge creators and advocates for social change. The photo voice methodology, that process itself, created multiple layers of impact. First, the participants built self-confidence as they saw their perspectives valued. They also developed creative skills through photography and storytelling. They practiced teamwork through group discussions. And most importantly, they transformed abstract barriers into visible realities that could be carried into public and policy conversations. And colleagues, outcome of that research, I've carried it over and over and over and over. And these are just examples of some of the pictures captured in that study. So the photo voice methodology reinforced for me that research, when grounded in disability justice, must do more than just document problems. It must also address them. It must amplify voices, it must foster agency, and it must contribute to systemic change and transformation. So, the findings of my research revealed that access barriers affected the social, physical, emotional, and psychological well-being of persons with mobility disabilities. And as an academic, I have published these findings. On this slide, you can see some of the publications that I have already done through this project. I have 6 of them in reputable outlets. One of them is under review, and I'm currently working on another. So 8 papers in all. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it didn't end there. In 2019, I published a manual entitled Break the Barriers, a guide to addressing environmental barriers for persons with mobility disabilities for use by social workers, disability activists, and the general public. I brought a copy of that book with me over here. So this is the book that I published in 2019. And I have a few copies that I'll be very glad to share. So the manual bridges the gap between research and practice. And I did this because disability justice and social work education moves beyond publications to transformation. This book maps the everyday physical and transportation obstacles that persons with mobility disabilities face. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is not just an academic book. It is a step-by-step guide for social workers, disability activists, and the general public to make the built environment more accessible. I did not just stop there. Later, I collaborated with a metal worker to construct a portable, accessible, foldable ramp. Ladies and gentlemen, this metal worker wasn't an engineer. And you know that I'm also not an engineer. I am a social work educator. But we were able to do this together because I lived the experience. I understand what it is like to make an environment more accessible. So these are excerpts of the portable, accessible ramp. But I have a video here to show you how exactly it works.
The portable ramp is being unfolded so that we all see how it works. So this is metal works. So you can tell it's strong. Please let's give a round of applause. So you see it's foldable. If you happen to be at a place where you cannot have concrete works done, you can purchase one of these or have one of these constructed, and you have a firm with very accessible, right dimensions, and it can be used. It's being put together so we all appreciate how it works. Tested. Give a bigger round of applause. Great.
Which one? See the way they look at you.
Thank you. So I didn't just stop there also. I decided to work with another local person, and this is a local mason. And this guy has very little education, not an engineer. So I work with him. Of course, I'm not an engineer as well. So we have been designing and constructing accessible ramps. So these are examples or samples of the ramps that I have constructed. So for this particular slide, I want to talk about it a little bit. So the guy in the picture is called Gabriel. Gabriel has cerebral palsy, and he is at Ganata Senior High School. I received a report about his difficulty accessing his classrooms. So this is how, let's see, here. The ramp was like before. So his mates would carry him to the class every day. So when I got the call, I was moved, I was touched. So I went in to construct this ramp for Gabriel. So this one ends just right at the corridor, but the entrance to the classroom itself wasn't accessible. So I constructed another ramp there. And then the dining hall, I forgot to add a picture of the dining hall. I had to construct another ramp at the dining hall because the dining hall was also not accessible. Today, Gabriel can move to his classroom with ease, independence, dignity, and joy. This story is a simple but yet powerful reminder of how accessibility transforms not only spaces, but also lives. So far, I have built 16 ramps for schools in Accra. With my own money. Occasionally, colleagues will support me, but the majority, the chunk of the money, is my own resources. I do this because, see, when I was growing up, I went through a lot of challenges accessing education. So I thought this is the least that I can do to support my brothers and sisters who have disabilities and are struggling through the educational sector. So the goal is to build 5 ramps every year. I'm yet to build for this year, but I am determined to do that. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, these ramps are not merely concrete. They are symbols of dignity and opportunity. They represent a small but tangible shift towards disability justice in education. So, colleagues, this is where disability justice and social work education meet, when knowledge becomes practice. So with pedagogy, my stance is that teaching should extend beyond the classroom and/or the school. Thus, I have incorporated disability justice in my courses. This enables students to experience advocacy firsthand and reshapes their attitudes. In 2024, I led over 300 students in the streets to campaign to raise awareness about the importance of disability inclusive practices. For many of these students, it was their first time holding placards, speaking to strangers, and connecting academic knowledge to social change. So here are some pictures of that activity. And the joy on the faces of the students are very obvious. The University of Ghana Authority, the University of Ghana Management, they heard about the activity, so it was featured on the university's website, and then also in the university's calendar. So this year, right here in the middle of the slide, is our activity on the University of Ghana's calendar. It appeared in June. I don't know why June, but hey, it is in there. Then this year, I led about 25 students of my master's class to the Medina market. So these are excerpts of pictures from that activity. The goal was not simply to observe, but to advocate, to engage traders, buyers, and community members in conversations about disability justice and disability inclusion. Again, the images here show my students actively engaging the market women, telling them what they can do to support disability justice. I'll share another video. To disseminate the findings of my students, the research that they did about the barriers that persons with disabilities encounter. So we have issues around transportation barriers. We have projects that also speak to physical access barriers, marital challenges that persons with disabilities experience, and so on and so forth. So the placards that they have here will give you a lot of information on their findings about these issues. But I also want to add that the problem that we have in this country is not persons with disabilities. It is not disability. We have to rethink disability because the problem is not persons with disabilities. The problem is, yes, we have to rethink disability because the problem is not persons with disabilities. We conceptualize disability to be like the individuals who live with disability, they are the problem. No, the problem is not persons with disabilities. The problem is society. Society is the problem. Why am I... Of course, and indeed, society is the problem. I just want us to know that I have been involved in this, activities and community engagement for several years. So initially, my students would share their findings and advocacy messages within the university campus, using that space for learning and awareness raising. So it was in 2024 that we decided to take our efforts beyond the campus to the wider community. And this shift marked a powerful transformation from classroom-based learning to public advocacy, allowing students to engage directly with the public and experiencing how social work education can drive real social change. Colleagues, Disability justice, this really is disability justice in action, when education does not end at the classroom door, but extends into the streets, markets, and communities. So all my advocacy efforts, my social justice activities, I've tried to let the media cover it. And the reason is that it reinforces and sustains advocacy efforts, even way beyond the activity is done, and it contributes to broader social change. Let me emphasize that disability justice is not only about tearing down barriers, but it is also about building joy-filled spaces where persons with disabilities can thrive. When a child rolls up a ramp into his or her classroom for the very first time, that is disability joy. When students walk through the markets advocating for persons with disabilities, that is disability joy. Social work education has the power to create and sustain these moments of disability joy, locally and globally. But what actions can social work education adapt to create and sustain disability justice and disability joy, locally and globally? Let's now try to unpack these. First, we need to review our curriculum. If we are to transform social work education, disability justice must be made core and not treated as an elective. Research courses should integrate participatory disability research methods that value the voices and knowledge of persons with disability. Internships must intentionally place students within disability-led organizations where they can learn directly from leaders in the movement. Throughout the curriculum, we must highlight how disability intersects with other vulnerabilities, ensuring that our graduates are prepared to advance equity, justice in all its dimensions, and for all persons with disabilities. And I think my colleagues on the panel on Thursday touched on this. It is very, very important. So next, pedagogy. So to advance disability justice through social work education, we must center lived experiences by adopting inclusive teaching approaches that engage persons with disabilities as faculty, staff, co-educators, and guest lecturers. Because I lived the experience, that is why I have been able to do what I have done over the years. At the same time, we must encourage experiential teaching methods that move beyond the traditional classroom, taking students into communities for advocacy and real-life spaces where they can learn directly from lived realities of disability and resilience and resistance. For research, for us to promote disability research in social work education, we must embrace participatory action research, such as photo voice, which amplifies lived realities and social change. And I think my colleagues also emphasized on this during the panel discussion on Thursday. We must affirm that lived experiences itself is expertise, recognizing persons with disabilities as vital knowledge holders, and centering their voices in knowledge production, thereby shaping what is taught, researched, and practiced. Most importantly, persons with disabilities must be included as co-researchers and leaders because they have insights, and their insights are indispensable to achieving real inclusion and justice. To conclude, colleagues, ladies, and gentlemen, I would like to visit the core of this keynote, the transformative power of disability justice and disability joy, and the essential role that social work education have to create in sustaining these spaces. Disability justice is not solely about dismantling barriers. Disability justice is equally about creating spaces of belonging, dignity, and disability joy, where persons with disabilities can truly thrive, lead, and celebrate their full humanity. Social work education can create these spaces where disability justice and disability joy work hand in hand, and this can be done both locally and globally. Using my example of building ramps, when a student in a wheelchair rolls into a classroom for the first time without struggling at the entrance, this is disability justice. It is also disability joy. When social work students march through the streets, raising awareness and demanding inclusion, it is disability justice. It is also disability joy. Now I ask this question: where does disability appear in our curricula, in our teaching, in our research? Is it at the margin? Is it an elective? Is it a core? My message to you, whether you are an educator, a practitioner, a policymaker, or a student, the message is this: do not leave disability justice in the margin of your work. Integrate disability justice into your teaching, in your research, in your practice, and your advocacy efforts. This is what disability justice calls us to build. Let us move forward as educators, practitioners, and advocates committed to embedding disability justice at the heart of social work education. And I am very glad that the Council of Social Work Education has taken the lead on this, and I believe that they deserve a round of applause. So, back to my call. Let us try as much as possible to integrate disability justice in everything that we do, in our teaching, in our research, in our advocacy efforts. It shouldn't be tomorrow. It shouldn't be someday, but it should be now. Thank you very much for listening, for reflecting with me, and for being part of this journey. Thank you.
We would like to do the honor of presenting the award to Dr. Naami. Please. Another round of applause. We're going to open it up for questions, about 15 minutes. Okay. Do you want me to give you water up here? You want me to give you water if you're questions?
Maybe a pen or something. Or what do you think? Okay. So, she'll be fine.
So we have about 15 minutes for questions and comments. And we'll have some microphones, I think, going around.
Good morning. Thank you so much. I was curious about the ramps project and learning more. How much does the folding ramp weigh? And my second question is, what policy barriers did you come up against when you were building these ramps?
Please, I couldn't hear the question well.
Question one was, how much does the folding ramp weigh? It looked lightweight, so I'm just curious how much it weighed. And the second question was, what policy barriers, if any, did you come up against when you were building the ramps for the schools?
Okay, I got the second question, but I didn't get the first question. Yeah. How much does a ramp cost? Weigh. Oh, the one that... The accessible ramp that I made, okay. Okay, so thank you, very good questions. So because that ramp was made of metal, it's a bit heavy. So I have been looking around, it's heavy. I didn't actually take the measurement, but it's a bit heavy. It's not like the ramps the foldable, accessible ramps that we have here in the US. They are lighter, but the local materials that I got are metal. They are heavy. I couldn't get anything lighter. I am still trying to see if I can find any local material that is less heavy, so lighter, so that we can produce in bulk, have people put them in their cars, go wherever they want to go, use it, because most buildings in Ghana are not very accessible. And I think you were asking about if there are any policies regarding accessibility in Ghana. Yes, there are policies. It's just unfortunate to say this. The implementation of the Persons with Disability Act has been a bit slow. I think about 2 years ago, no, about 3-4 years ago, I was part of the technical committee that worked on the amendments to align the Persons with Disability Act 715, that is the policy for Ghana, to align it to the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Well, we thought that the amendments were going to pass. Then there was a government change, and then one thing led to another. So we haven't seen the change yet. So currently, all those policies are there. We have a policy on standard for accessibility and all of that, but implementation has been very slow. We are very hopeful that with this new government, hopefully sometime before his tenure is over, we will have the reenacted act passed. So that is our hope for now.
Hi, I just want to thank you so much for coming. It really means a lot. I'm Elisa Robinson. I'm a BSW student at the University of Alabama. My question is, I went to Ghana, and one of the things I noticed in the streets were people with physical disabilities. They were necessarily on the streets begging for money. How do you see that implication of accessibility shifting from education to actual community work?
So that phenomenon is something that is kind of becoming a very big issue, persons with disabilities begging on the streets. But usually what I tell people is that the majority of them are there through no fault of theirs, through no fault of theirs. So you did not get any family support, then probably your family didn't want anybody to know that you are in that home, you have a disability. Then at age 16, 18, 19, 20, you are grown up. You have to find something to do. social support systems, networks, safety nets in Ghana for persons with disabilities, very minimal. What do you do? Where do you turn to? Sometimes even families that could support, because of stigma, nobody wants to do so. So they hit the streets. So efforts have been made in the past, but those efforts were not very useful because you cannot just pick anybody from the streets without giving them any skills so that they can manage their lives. And one other thing that also happens in the country is that sometimes people think that disability impacts the entire being of a person with a disability in ways that they cannot do anything meaningful for themselves. So that issue of begging is a huge thing. I'm just working on a paper on that. You could see that some are there because they have to survive. I can't rule out the fact that sometimes, yes, people want quick money, but the majority are really struggling. We are waiting yet to see what the government will do, again, to at least address these issues of persons with disabilities. But for now, we don't have any social security system that targets persons with disabilities directly. If you're not working, you are on your own. If your family will not support you because of stigma, because you have a disability, and because they don't want people to associate you with them, that is your business. If you're not lucky and you have a disability, you are able to establish yourself, sometimes that also is a challenge because people don't want to do business with individuals who have disabilities. So it's a whole lot. But we are very hopeful. We just don't want to throw our hands in the air and say that there's nothing we can do. We are hopeful that something good will happen sooner.
I just want to say thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This was such an important topic, and you did great justice to this whole disability injustice that people have to endure. I'm sitting because I have a short-term disability right now, I just wanted to say to you that as a professor and a person that has taught policy for the entire time I've been in the academy, the way you connected policy to practice was incredible, absolutely incredible. And it was so easy. I'm hoping students saw it as easy. I was going to say, so easy for the students to connect the actual injustice, the issue, with the policy to help get, you just talked about the ramp, how that just improved people's livelihood, their life, their ability to get up in and out of the school. And I just thank you. That was so powerful. And when I go back to teaching next year, I'm going to implement that process into my course. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning. I'm Elizabeth Hill. I am deaf, and I'm a second-year doctoral student at Monmouth University, so I want to give a shout-out to Monmouth. Thank you so much for your lecture this morning. It was just so inspirational. I saw in the video one of your students holding a sign about sign language for teaching sign language in all schools. And could you just talk a little bit more about that? I would just like to know more. Thank you so much.
I didn't get it. One of the videos, the student was what?
One of your students was holding a sign in one of your participatory research out in the community about teaching sign language in all schools. And I just didn't know if you could just shine a light a little bit more on that. It was just so inspirational to see that.
Did you say one of the videos?
Yes, yes.
Is it
yes,
this one? Is it this one? Oh, okay, I get it. Okay, yes. So right now, In Ghana, things are changing these days. At national fora, we do get sign language interpretation. But beyond that, sometimes it is a struggle. So for instance, when individuals who have hearing impairment go to the hospital, they are on their own. Yes, you have to go with your own interpreter. So those who are literate, sometimes they will communicate by writing with the doctor. But what about those who are not literate? And most times they get wrong diagnosis. So I guess my students were trying to say that sign language is very important and we have to take it very seriously. We have been advocating for sign language, inclusion of sign language in the curriculum. So that people will get to understand what it is like and how to communicate basic sign language with people who have hearing impairment. So my students were just trying to raise awareness about the fact that it is important that we pay attention to issues of sign language so that everyone can have access somehow so that they can communicate with persons who have hearing disabilities. Because in Ghana, they are one of the marginalized disability groups because communication is always a challenge.
Hi. Hi. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, especially learning about how you're using this in your classroom. And yeah, there were a lot of really great tools that I can take to my classroom. I was curious about how intellectual disability fits into this general movement and just what's happening with the state of advocacy for people with intellectual disabilities in your area. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So what is going on in Ghana is that we are supposed to have segregated schools and then inclusive schools. So individuals with intellectual disabilities, usually they go through the segregated schools. Because we are still struggling with inclusive education in Ghana. We don't have the systems in place to practice inclusive education. Even though we have the policy, we have it on paper. I think I wrote one paper, and my question was inclusive education, how ready are the teachers? So the teachers, based on the research that I've done, seen that they are not getting enough, preparations, enough information regarding disability, because disability is thrown in there with all other variables in the name of inclusion. So it becomes so hard to focus on persons with disabilities when it comes to the education system. So that is what the struggle has been. So yes, we do have individuals with intellectual disabilities. We have special schools for them. But thankfully, we also do have organizations, NGOs, that are trying to work with them. And very recently, we have had people coming together to form groups for children with intellectual disabilities so that they could advocate and get some support for them. So the amended act that we are working on, we have tried to ensure that provisions are made for all of these kids so that the government will take responsibility, because right now, they are not the government's responsibility. Yeah, sure.
Thank you again, Dr. Naami, for your wonderful words. Wow. As we conclude this powerful lecture, again, I just want to honor Dr. Augustina Naami's just unwavering commitment to disability advocacy, disability justice, and disability joy. Her work reminds us that true social progress really demands speaking truth to power, as she did in that video, and bold action. Let us all carry forward her vision with purpose and solidarity. Ometeo.